you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
Of all the creatures in Minecraft, what did the piglins do to end up in the Nether? A place in the game's code literally called Hell, where the very environment burns away at their flesh. Their only source of food is a mutated version of themselves. So I do ask the question, dear viewer, why did God send the piglins to hell? But first, two caveats. The first is dealing with the Minecraft movie and Minecraft Legends. Obviously, both of these heavily feature the piglins, and at first glance would seem to be a great insight into answering this question. However, I will actually not be taking either of these into account in answering this question. First and foremost, the piglins in both of these products, Legends and the movie, don't actually seem like the same type of piglins we see in-game. In-game, the piglins are passive. They barter with the player. They're not really that aggressive or anything like that, whereas in the movies and in Legends, they are this aggressive, formal, warlike force. On top of that, looking at the piglins in either the movie or Legends doesn't really help answer the question, as both of them start in the Nether anyways. The second caveat I'm going to get into is that I am going to be assuming a Christian worldview, or at least a Christian view of hell, for this video. Although the word hell has its origin or Nordic-type pagan philosophy, it was very quickly adopted and widespread by Christianity, on top of the fact that the Minecraft developers clearly got influence from Christian views of hell, such as found in the Bible, or probably even more so from descriptions of Dante's Inferno, which is itself a Christian epic poem. So, those two things out of the way, let's get into answering the question, why did God send the piglins to hell? In the Bible, Jesus talks about hell, saying, "The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." In another place he says, "It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye, than with two eyes to be thrown into hell, where the worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched." Let's start with the two obvious choices, greed and wrath, and I'll briefly explain why I don't think either of them are the right answer. Starting with wrath, although once again, if we're excluding Legends of the movie, there isn't much wrath in the piglins. The only time they're really going to attack you is if you're not wearing the right kind of armor, or if you're dealing with a piglin brute, which you're only going to find if you're actively invading their home or stealing from their chests, which is kind of reasonable. I don't think that really classifies as sinful wrath at that point. With wrath out of the way, let's take a look into the more obvious one, which is greed, and once again, why I don't think this is the correct option for what sin sent the piglins to hell. Now, of course, everyone knows the obsession that piglins have with gold. Surely this is greed. I mean, what else could it be? But the way that piglins interact with gold doesn't actually seem to be that way. For instance, piglins will only attack you if you're not wearing gold armor. If they were greedy and they wanted your gold, wouldn't it be the exact opposite? Where if they see you wearing gold, they kill you to take your gold armor? Yet, we don't see that. Similarly, they're also going to attack you if you start mining gold in the environment. Yet for the most part, most of the time players are mining gold in the Nether, it's actually to barter with piglins. You're actually mining gold to give to them, so why would they be upset about this? So I really don't think greed is the best option. So what do I think is? Well, let me start off with another Bible story. After the Israelites had been slaves in Egypt for several hundred years, God raised up Moses to deliver them, parting the Red Sea for them to pass by and escape the Egyptians. After this, they were wandering in the wilderness for a number of years due to the fact that they had sinned. At one point, a man named Korah and several other men with him accused Moses of being an unfair leader. Then, in their pride, they tried to take his place. Moses put up a challenge to see whom God would allow to take the lead. Because of their rebellion, God had opened the earth to drag them alive, screaming, into hell. And this is where I think we can get the basis of how we're going to answer this question. My conclusion is that the piglins were cast down to hell because of their pride. Think about it this way. In the manner of Korah, rather than listen to God and obey, they decided to create the world in their own image. They decided to make their own version of reality as they thought it was best. We see them still trying to do this in the Nether. We talked earlier about how the piglins won't attack you if you're wearing gold. Well, why is that? Because when you're gold, you fit their image, you fit their view of the ideal reality. But when you're not, you don't. When you destroy golden blocks, to them, it's not as though you're gathering a resource. You are actually destroying that which they find perfect in their reality. You might say, isn't it idolatry? Don't they have golden statues, just like the Israelites who had the golden cow did? But while this is true, I don't think these golden hogs are really idolatry in the same way it was for the golden calves in Israel. Rather, St. Augustine, speaking of this passage, says, "You remember, of course, how the earth opening swallowed up alive the leaders of a schism, and fire from heaven breaking forth destroyed their accomplices. Neither the making and worshipping of an idol, nor the burning of the holy book, was deemed worthy of such a punishment." Since the golden calf incident was not worthy of such a punishment, I believe it is prideful rebellion that led the piglins to hell. What about the zombified piglin? How does that play into all of this? Well, when you compare the zombified piglin to the normal piglin, there's two main contrasts that you're going to see. Number one, their mind seems to be gone. They seem to be more beastly than they are actually human in some sense. Similarly, their skin is almost decaying on them while they're still alive. We actually see two examples pretty similar to this in the Old Testament. Not too far from Korah's rebellion in the book of Numbers, we see Moses' siblings, Miriam and Aaron, try to usurp Moses as the leader of the Israelites. As a result, Miriam's skin is covered in leprosy, almost in a way that her flesh is decaying on her while she's still alive. Similarly, in the book of Daniel, the king Nebuchadnezzar, because of his pride, is given the mind of a beast. And I think we see both of these as punishments for pride in the Bible and what's happening with the zombified piglins. So, when a piglin tries to escape the Nether, beating their own punishment and establishing their own prideful sense of escape, they are cursed with even further punishment for pride. So, in conclusion, based on all the evidence that we talked about, I do not think it was wrath or greed that got the piglins cast into hell, but rather it was the pride and ambition they had to create the world in their own image. And remember, dear viewer, that pride cometh before the
fall.